Bezrat Hashem, we continue today on the 25th of the month of Shvat, Sunday, the first day of the week of Parashat, first day of Parashat Mishpatim. We're going to continue here in the Mishnah of Perek Aleph of Shabbat, first chapter of Shabbat, Mishnah Tet, 9 Mishnah. Says the Mechaber, Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, said Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, נוהגין היו בית אבא שהיו נותנים כלי לבן לכובס נוכרי 3 ימים קודם לשבת. He says that in my house, says Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, in my father's house, it was accustomed to give the clothing for laundry, which was white clothing, 3 days prior to Shabbat. Okay, ושבין אלו ואלו שטוענין קורות בית הבת ועיגול הגת. And ושבין בית שמאי ובית הלל. So both would agree here. ושבין אלו ואלו שטוענין קורות בית הבת וגילוי הגת. I guess it had to be לאחר שטענו הזיתים טוענים עליהם קורות בגמדים או במקשה זר ולהולך. So again, this now we're talking about the Shatotuanin Korot Beit Abad Ve'igule Hagat. So now we're going back into the concepts of preparing the squeezing of the oil, the squeezing of the wine, for preparing over the wine. So he says, Beit Shammai Beit Hillel Shatoanin Korot Beit Abad Ve'igule Beit Abad Hu Kli Shemanichin Bahen Azitim Atachonim. So after they grind the olives, they would place it in the place called Beit Abad. And Hagat, Ukli, Shedorchin Bahen Ha'avim. And Gat would be Hagat would be called a place where the people would be trembling on the grapes. Umasimin korot kivedim ala zitim atechonin. So what they do is they put big heavy planks on the grounded olives. ודפים כבדים עגולים על הענבים הדרוכים שבבית הבד מערב שבת. So and then they would put also heavy בדפים כבדים עגולים על הענבים. So too also there will be heavy round planks placed on the grapes in that area where that they used to step on the grapes. And before Shabbat, המשקה זב מאליו בשבת. And the liquids will just flow out of it on Shabbat. And then, even then, while it's squeezing, you will be allowed to drink from it. And this will be allowed even if you were squeezing a little bit Shabbat, because this form of squeezing will not be obligating you to bring a sacrifice on Shabbat. So once everything is already squished, all those, so I guess on Shabbat, original olive and original grape would be a sur deoraita. But over here, once they're already grinded, once they're already squashed, now that there is a process of continuous squashing, this is not going to be prohibited on Shabbat only for the Rabbanan. And the rabbi said, since the planks were already placed, and now you went there and drank from it, they're not worried, they're not concerned that you're going to take and do it on purpose there on Shabbat extra, because that's already too far disconnect from the original Avirah. Even the Shammai would not answer it from the, as he holds Shvitat Kelim, he holds that your utensils cannot perform any job for you. יש לומר דבכך, היי גם דנפיק ממילא וכלי לאו מידי עביד, גם לבית שמאי שרי. Over here, the cleats are not doing any work for you. They're just sitting there and they're pressing through the natural way. They're pressing the grapes and olives due to their weight, not due to that you're using the dishes, the cleats, the utensils to perform any task for you. So that will be allowance on Beit Shammai's side. So this is the Mishnah. Let's see what Rabbeinu Ovadia has to say about it. Rabbeinu Ovadia, Mishnah Ket, Kli Levan. Why Dafka Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel brought us a scenario with white clothing? Shu kasher lechabes. The white clothing is the hardest to wash. He says, Tzarich shlosha yamim. You need 3 days to launder it. Umachmirin al atzman bebeit Shammai. Kebeit Shammai. And the household of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, over there in his father's house, Rabban Gamliel's house, there will be more machmir like Beit Shammai. Ve'en halacha keRabban Shimon ben Gamliel. However, that's not the halacha. Ela kebeit Hillel shematirim im hashemesh. Even Beit Hillel that you're allowed to go to give it to the laundromat even before sunset. B'shavin Beit Shammai or Beit Hillel shetoanin et hazetim mibod yom. Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, they both say that you could prepare or continue the squashing of the grapes together even before Shabbat. בקורות בית הבת לאחר שטחנו הזיתים טעונים עליהם קורות כבדים והמשקה זב והולך מאליו כל השבת. So he says over there the same thing that Rabbi explains as the first row did. Yechinu Boaz told us that what's his name? Over here, once the olives were crushed already before, so now the continuum of squishing the oil out of it, it's actually no task being done. They put them inside this special utensil where they put the planks, the heavy planks of the stones, and I guess they on their own squishing the oil. Ube'agulei hagad, hana hagdegat kari agulin, shayudapin avin asuin be'igul. So, however, in the gut, that's the place where they stamp the grapes. Over there, they would put agulin, the kari agulin, shayudapin avin asuin. There will be heavy planks, like a rounder off. That even in this case, where you put the heavy planks on the grapes and left, the Beit Shammai would agree with Beit Hillel. There's no obligation of bringing a sin offering. The concept over here is, in order to put the heavy planks, you're supposed to grind or crush the what's his name, the zaitim, the olives, in a mill. First you grind them. Once you grind them, then there is no isur according to Beit Shammai even. So to grapes, first you squash them with your left feet. Okay, over here the fact is that once you squash olives and grapes, once you squash the grapes more easily, understood that on their own they're going to be already fleeing, the juice is going to be coming out. If you leave it like that, it rots or whatever it is, it shrinks, the liquid is coming out just in a slower manner. So if you put the heavy planks in it before Shabbat, now it's flowing a little bit faster because of the planks. But again, it's like it's anyway the leakage continues just because of the heavy planks. It goes faster. That does not constitute a chilul Shabbat. Continues the Rabbi Yud, number 10, Mishnah number 10. En solin basar ubeitza ela kedei shitzonu mibod yom. So here now we're gonna go back. Now we're gonna go into continuum of food preparations. And solin basar. You cannot shish kebab the meat, batzar or onions, ubeitza and eggs. Ela kedei shitzonu mibod yom, unless it's all gonna be prepared before Shabbat. Meaning you don't put it on the fire of the mango, right? You have a mango and you put the meat over there, shish kebab, or you put it in the onion and leave it to be cooking until Shabbat. So the halacha is you cannot do that before Shabbat and leave it there, let it on a small coal fire, and it's going to cook it or whatever, make it nice for you to eat it on Shabbat. That would be prohibited. And notnin pad latanur im chashecha. Same thing, you're not allowed to put bread into the oven with a nightfall. Velo harara al gabe gechalim, and also not a pita on top of the charcoals. However, if they are going to be sufficiently baked and visible during the day before Shabbat, that is okay. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, however, the Mishnah continues. Rabbi Eliezer says, I really don't care the face, the top of it. I'm only more concerned about the crust from the bottom. If the bottom become crusty, then Rabban Eliezer will say during the day. Now you could keep it there, I guess, into the Shabbat. Let's see. That's what it means. Rabbeinu Avadi Bartenurah, Kedei sheyitzolu k'me'achal ben dursai. How much does it have to be prepared before Shabbat? At least a third of it. That's ma'achal of the dursai, meaning the eating of the dursai. He was a thief. He was a thief who would not wait. He doesn't have time to wait for anything. So he would wait a third of cooking. And he would eat and consume anything that's third cooked. I guess because of the lifestyle that he proposed of himself, it was dangerous for him to stick around and wait for the cooking until the end. So now the halacha is, anytime we're discussing the cooking, even bishul hakum, if a goy puts food on the fire for Sfaradim, if it cooks more than 33% from the goy already, and even if the goy Jew comes now and continues cooking, it's already asur. So that's the accepted custom. And however, the other way around also, if a Jew puts it and it will be sufficient enough from the fire, from the way that the Jew put it on the fire, was sufficient enough to be mahal berdusai. If it stays there, it will be enough to that. Then even if the goy mixes it, also will be allowed, because it was already considered to be like prepared for la'alacha for Sefaradim to eat it before goy starts playing with the food. V'hu shelish bishul. It's talking about the third of cooking of food. After the third, it's already befitting to be eaten somewhat. So he says, Rabbeinu Ovadia, that if you put shish kebab, how many minutes does it take to make shish kebab? The truth of the matter is 10 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. So let's say even 2 minutes before Shabbat you put it on. 2-3 minutes sounds like it would be fine, because shish kebab does not take so much. The fire eats up the meat very fast. 7 minutes, maybe 8 minutes max. You would have already shish kebab from both sides. So he says, I guess so 2-3 minutes before that, before Shabbat, that will be sufficient enough to leave it there. And we're not afraid that you're gonna mix up the coals in order to make it cooking fine. Therefore, we do not make any decrease. Harara ugat refetzim. So harara is what the rabbi wants to talk. We're talking about it's like a pilaf or a pita. Sheikramut chilat hapea osin kemo kerum. So we're talking about over there. What does that mean? That it should crust its face, meaning the shape on top becomes brownish, right? Becomes crusty. That would be allowed if you put it before. If that would be cooked, baked before Shabbat. Then if it continues baking during Shabbat, that is not a problem, says the rabbi. Shem klapei avir hatanur. So the face is whatever you could see by your face. Kedei shikrom hatachton. Rabbi Eliezer said, what about I'm more concerned about the bottom crust. Hamedubak lecheresh hatanur. Dehu neefat chila kodem shikromu papanim sheklapei avir hatanur. So Rabbi Eliezer is more a little bit lenient. He says that we know whatever is closest to the fire gets crusty first. So his is sufficient as long as the bottom of the oven, the bottom of the dough that you put it there became crusty. And Rabbi Eliezer will allow it to be used for Shabbat. The halacha is like Rabbi Ovadia says, not like Rabbi Eliezer, meaning that it has to be baking properly to the top where it's not touching the fire, where it's furthest from the fire. That would be sufficient enough for Shabbat. Anything less than that, or not enough, close to baking it properly, that would not be sufficient. So says Rabbeinu Avadi Bartenurah. Yud Aleph, Mishnah 11. Meshalshin et ha-pesach b'tanur im chashecha. Okay, so meshalshin et ha-pesach b'tanur im chashecha. The korban pesach could be placed meshalshin. I guess they put it inside. What's the mishalshin? Tani mishalshin. Shashin is the way, I guess, the position of the lamb that was going inside the tanur into the oven of Korban Pesach. It has to be done in a certain way, so it's not going to be cooked. It has to be standing on a certain stick, so that the fire consumes or burn or prepares it from in its entirety, consuming the fire, and not should be anything looking like cooking. We're concerned with the liquids remaining there, and the liquid usually cooks the meat. So on Pesach it says specifically you're not allowed to eat cooked meat, and we're very meticulous. The Korban Pesach should not be boiled in any matter, even if it's in itself, the meat, with the bubbles and the meat, the water, the liquid that becomes hot and cooks. So it was positioned in a certain way that everything should be flowing out. So all the liquids are flowing out, and the flame is catching onto the meat and just roasting the meat. That's what Hashem wants. And the Chachamim had to be very, very meticulous to make sure that it doesn't weigh. There is no way, even if it's not put in a metal rod. Why? Because metal gets hot. It would be put on a on a tree trunk of a rimon. It would be taken. They would take a special stick out of a pomegranate tree, I guess one of the branches or something that's very long, and they would stick it into the meat, and it would hold the meat inside the tanur. And the good thing is the fire will not make if it's metal, if it's a pole, the pole gets hot. The pole gets hot, and the pole is cooking the meat that's touching to the pole. Therefore, it's no longer roasted. It's going to be called cooking, and that's going to be asur for Korban Pesach. All right? So therefore, the rabbis have instituted this stick that doesn't get hot. The inside of it doesn't get hot. Therefore, it will not be cooking the meat around it. So only the fire will have the shlita. Only the fire will have full control over the meat. So in that matter, that's how it was done. So now the rabbi says, you're allowed to prepare the Korban Pesach with nightfall. Okay, ומאחזין את האור במדורת בית המוקד ובגבולין, כדי שיחוז האור ברובן, ביהודה אומר בפחמין כלשהו. So the question is now discussing over here, how does the fire pertaining, so we're talking about, obviously we're talking about the Korban Pesach that was eaten Friday night. All right, there's no other question. During the week, you could cook anytime, even you could start cooking at nightfall, after nightfall. Here we're talking about, obviously, if it fell on Shabbat. So let's see what the rabbi is going to explain, because the translation is going to be "Umachizin et ha'ur b'mdurat beit hamoked." So the rabbi says like this. Let's go inside. We'll have a better explanation. Rabbeinu Ovadia, משלשין את הפסח, התנורים שלהם פיהן למעלה ומורידין הצלי לתוכו, והחיתני משלשין. So the oven was made a certain way where the mouth of the opening was on top, and they would put the goat or the ram inside once it's prepared for roasting upside down, inside. Im hashecha, it has to be done right before nightfall. V'afagav de be'alma en tzolin kedamrinan. Right? Even though halacha is you don't make shish kebab close to Shabbat. Hachashare, over here it's allowed. Bnei chabura zirizin hen umedake. Over there we have a chash, right? I guess you were afraid that you're gonna stir up the coals to make it cooking on the regular by yourself at home. But over here, since you have a whole group waiting for that Pesach to be prepared, the rabbis did not make any gzerot coming to that. So right before Shabbat, right before nightfall, you're allowed to put in the ram inside the oven, and we're not afraid that people are gonna play around with the coals. Okay, they're not afraid that they're gonna start playing with the coals, and therefore it was allowed. מעד בעצם של מדורת בית המוקד, ולא חיישין עד שמא יבוא הכהנים להעבירה מהמשתכשך. So I guess umachizin. מה זה umachizin? What does this word umachizin means? We go to here, יכינו בועז. אם חשכה, האור מדורת בית המוקד, מדליקין. ומאחזין with the meaning they're lighting את האור with the fire במדורת בית המוקד. with את האור מדורת בית המוקד היא לשכה שבעזרה שיש שם מדורה לכהנים להתחמם. מדורכים בעזרה יחף על הרצפה של שיש. Okay, so then they would take the fire from that place where there was in certain places in Beit HaMikdash there was always fire, so that the legs of Kohanim would warm up because they were walking without any shoes on marble, and it would be cold. So that those fires were they took the fire from to light the fire in the every person would come and light from there the fire of how they're going to be roasting the lamb for Pesach. ובגבולין כדי שיחוז האור ברובן. So they would put it in the צריך אדם להבעיר המדורתו מבעוד יום כשיחוז האור ברובו. So the carefulness has to be done here that the light of the tanur, of the oven, had to be lit way before during the day, so it's going to be lit good through so the roasting of the meat that's going to be happening on Shabbat, which you're not allowed to add anything. Not allowed to add any more coal, any wood, anything. וכמו ברובה, כדי שתהיה השלהבת עולה מעליה, ואין הצריכים לקסמין דקין תחתיה לחבירה. You have to be very careful that it's going to be good enough fire that you don't have to add anything else. אב בפחמין כלשהן, וזמין, המועגן ובגולין כדי שיחוז האור ברובן. So רבי יהודה אומר בפחמים כלשהו. Rabbi Yehuda said he gave a leniency. כי היכא דמדורת בית המוקד מלקין בבית המוקד לכהנים, כמו כן במדורת הפחמים מקילין לכל אדם אינו צריך להאחיז בהן האור אלא כלשהו. דאין דרכה להיות כבה והולכת ולא עתי לחטוי בהן. רק רבי יהודה דלקה מן דפליג עליהם. So he says that over there I guess they were even they would in the oven was all the fire was prepared, so I guess the fire that they used to transfer from one place from those of the Beit HaMikdash from the Kohanim would light the fire to light the fire of the tanurim of the ovens, that they would not have any chash as long as the fire was lit. Then it doesn't matter what size, what, where, and how. I guess now we're talking about you have to put big lumps of coals in order to burn to make the Pesach ready. I guess the preparation and each one knew what requires in order to roast a lamb. I'm very unfamiliar how to roast a lamb. Unfortunately, never done it in my life. But I guess those people who know, and especially the time of the Gemara, the Mishnah, the Tanakh time, they knew exactly at the time of the Beit HaMikdash. They knew exactly how to perform this task. That don't forget, as I already mentioned, if it falls on Friday night, the Pesach, they have to be so careful to put enough fire that it should not be insufficient to do its job. But again, and also don't forget, it cannot be boiling or cooking from the heat on its own, of its own heat. It has to be from the fire. So I guess they knew how to do specifically direct enough fire that it should perform the task and without any problem. The question is now, what kind of coal they use. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, even small pieces will be enough. And Rabbi Ovadia wants to point out that nobody argued with Rabbi Eliezer, and therefore that should be the halacha without any further discussion. Okay, continue Mishnah, chapter 2, Perik Bet, Shabbat, halacha, Mishnah Aleph, Bameh madlikin ubameh en madlikin. So the Mishnah now wants to discuss, you want to light candles for Shabbat. And the question is, what are you allowed to use for candles for Shabbat? What kind of oil? Can you use anything that lights or anything that lights with? What can you use for wicks? What can you use for oil? What can you use for the gasoline? Whatever it is, can you use whatever you use? And that's going to be the first Mishnah of chapter 2. So the question is like this: Bamei madlikin, uamei en madlikin. What are you allowed to light? Candle for Shabbos, and when you're not allowed to light candles for Shabbos. So the Mishnah is going to first right away, Kidarka Kodesh, is going to enumerate to you things that you're not allowed to light. So you're going to stay away from it right away. They've learned the first thing. En madlikin blo belechesh. What is lechesh? You're not allowed to use lechesh. And Rabbeinu Ovadia says, what does that mean? Lo belechesh kemin tzemer yesh be'erez be'en aklipa la'etz. V'karui lechesh. So there is a certain, like a twig that could come out from a tree trunk. So it's in a peel of the tree. So that lechesh is not allowed to be used for lighting the fire for candles of Shabbat. Then continues the Mishnah, lo belechesh v'lo bechosen. So what is chosen? Rabbi Ovadia says pishtan she'eno menupatz. So the flasks that floats out of the tree, those flasks, they harden. So you have to minopatz make it like fluffy. If it's not fluffy, you cannot use it for Shabbat. V'lo bekalach. Rabbi Ovadia says, what is kalach? Pesolet shel meshi. So you have some leftovers from silk. So that also will not light good. And therefore you cannot use it. V'lo beptilat ha'idan, and not a wick of the idan. Kemin tzemer yesh ben aklipa, be'arava ben aklipa la'etz. So be'arava is, I guess, in west. There is a certain kemin tzemer yesh be'arava ben aklipa la'etz. So in the west there is trees that have between the tree and its outer shell. There's in the middle of it also looks like a flask. Some kind of flask that cannot be used for lighting candles for Shabbat. V'lo beptilat hamidbar. Also, same concept. You cannot use a flask of the desert. What is that? Ale esev aroch shegodolin otam umadlikin bahen. So there are certain types of growth in the desert that's very long. Shegodolin otam umadlikin bahen. And they used to use it for lighting fire. So on that, for Shabbat, you're not allowed to use. V'lo biroka shel pnei hamayim, and also not roka, kimin tzemer migadel betofnei asfina. Roka is a certain, like a wool, like a soft, that on the edges of the boats, like a green thing that grows there. So that thing also, if you scrape it off, you want to use it as a flask, also not allowed to. Because it's always flowing in the water, so I guess it doesn't have that good fire consumption. Roka means over here the green that's on which is right. Sometimes the wooden boats in the olden times, they would have this whole green thing growing on it. Looks like a wool thing. Looks like something that's like a thick, some kind of thick layer. So that would be also lo bezefet. So what is lo zefet? Shlo yiten zefet namas v'sha'ava nitechet baner b'makom shemen v'yadlik. So lo bezefet v'lo b'sha'ava, lo zefet v'lo b'sha'ava, and this is a formula called zefet and something called wax. Shlo yiten zefet namas. You should not give this zefet which is melted or wax. Nitachat banera b'makom shemen v'yadlik. Well, meaning you shouldn't put it where with the instead of oil and light it. It's not gonna look like good, right? Zefet v'lo b'shava. Zefet. Let's see if I have a pach. Something. Zefet is pach. Wax mechutach. So shava is wax, as we said. Zefet, Rabbi explains over here, is pach. I don't know what pach means. Let's see if Rabbi Ovadia has a explanation. Lo shaloiten zefet namas. So it's some kind of melted. I skipped my tongue. I have it by my mind. Zefet. Fech. I don't know. Okay, and also wax. V'lo b'shemen kik, and not also with oil. Right. Just not to confuse, the Rabbi Rabbeinu says, "Aval la'asot kemim tila." But if you make like a candle out of it, and then there is in the middle of it there is a string, that would be allowed. What we're talking about is that you have an oil candle, oil lamp, and you melted wax inside it. It's not going to do anything good. It's not going to burn properly. You need that the concept, the construction where the wax candle is long and there's something in the middle, and that burns the wax. That's not a problem, but that should not be a problem. But what the problem was is you just have a bulk of melted wax inside this bowl, and somehow the oil candle is not, for sure, it's not going to light good. Therefore, don't forget about it. The Rabbi says. Velo b'shemen kik. What is shemen kik? Shemen means the oil. Hayotze magarinim shebetoch hatzemer. So talking about geffen. So you have cotton seed oil. Shekorin cotton seed. So cotton seed oil will not be kosher to light candles. V'yesh meparashim kikayon diyuna. והוא עשב שעליו גדולים ונקרא בערבית קרוע. So it says shemen kik is actually some kind of a plant that says long leaves. That also would not be good enough for lighting candles for Shabbat. והשמן היוצא ממנו עב ביותר, and the oil that comes out of it is very thick. And if it's very thick, then it's not gonna light a fire at all. Now continues the Mishnah. Velo b'shemen tzrefa, and not a shemen of tzrefa, shemen shel truma shenitma'a. Shemen tzrefa means that you had a shemen of truma, which was kodesh for the kohanim, and then it became tameh. So now you might say, let me light candles for Shabbos for that. No, you cannot use it, even though it's a perfectly clean olive oil. Not allowed to use it. Velo be'aliyah, velo be'aliyah. What is aliyah? Srefa. Let's see, Rabbeinu יכין ובהלה כשנתייבש מדליקו כאבוקה. So aliyah, something that becomes dry, and you would utilize it as a torch. So that velo be'aliyah. So that kind of, I guess, light for Shabbat will not be allowed. Velo bechelev, and also not fat. Nachum Hamadi Omer. So Nachum Hamadi says, Madlakin bechelev mevushal. However, if you have chelev mevushal, oil that was cooked, right? So oil that was cooked, I guess, the oil extracted from it, and now you have oil from the fat. Let's say lamb. We do that to the fat lamb, right? We fry it a little bit, fry lamb without anything, and then boom, you have a whole bunch of oil. So he says, that oil, can you light or not? So Nachum Hamadi Omer, Madlikin bechelev mevushal. You're allowed to. You have right now oil, so you put a twig inside there and burn it. No problem. The problem with this, there is a problem. It becomes jello. It's distant, so it's not going to light properly. Also, besides that, we have this issue today. I don't know what everybody's okay with it, but I'm not happy with it. They have jello oil for Hanukkah licht. Hanukkah olive oil jello. Right, they sell those jello bottles. Problem is, until it warms up, until the fire and this, it's all a big problem. It could be the same problem here. I don't know how they koshered it. Last time I had a lot of problems with it, until I could use it, and then until the wick touches the fire or warms up the metal. The metal has to warm up all around it in the metal, and until I think I should stay away from it. So the rabbi says over here, נחום עדי אומר, מדליקים בחלב מבושל, וחכמים אומרים שאין אחד מבושל, ואחד שאין מבושל, אין מדליקים בו. חכמים say it doesn't matter, cooked or fat oil, not cooked, you're not allowed to light candles for Shabbat with it, and with this, בעזרת השם, let's see why the rabbi said no. תנא קמא נמי אומר, ולא בחלב כל שחלב במשמע, אלא איכא בין החכמים לתנא קמא. The rabbi says, who is it? Nachum Hamadi says yes, but the one who wrote the Mishnah said no. So the rabbi says, ask the question. So what's the difference between Chachamim and Tanna Kama and the first one who wrote the Mishnah? And Laika ben Chachamim le Tanna Kama, dechad b'nai hosaber deshare lehadlik b'cherev shemevushal shemarev bo shemen kol shehu. So one holds that if you put fat that's cooked, as long as you put all of the oil there, it's going to make it not become jello fest. they will be allowed. This is V'chad Oser, and one says no. Even if you have mixed it with oil, ולא נתברר לחכמי התלמוד מי שניהם אסור ומי שמתיר. And the Chachamim don't know who is the Tanakama or the Rabbanan who said it's going to be allowed with a mixture of oil, who doesn't. The Halakha Chachamim, and therefore Mipaskin, the Halakha is like Chachamim, and there is no direct line. The direct line where there's just Shemen Mushal, oil that's cooked, in that case it would be Asur without any problem. The only question was if it's a mixture of oil, other oil in it, would we allow it or not? Have a wonderful evening. Bezat Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue Mishnah Bet.